Welcome to Creative Conversations. I'm Roger Humphrey. In this episode, I'm pleased to welcome back to the program the award-winning ceramic artist Holly Ross. As an emerging artist, Holly has had her work featured in many galleries throughout the United States. Before we begin, please take a moment to subscribe or follow. It's an easy thing to do, and it really helps me out a lot. Thank you. And we're welcoming to the show sculptor and ceramicist Holly Ross. Thank you for coming back on the show. It's been a while since we've had you on the show, and this is our first video together. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Great, great. So I got a variety of things to talk about today, I hope. And we'll see where it goes from there. First thing, we ought to do a little truth in advertising. Two things that people should know about you. First is that you have won awards and you have had shows around the country in various cities. The second thing is that they should know is that you are my niece. We are related. And so apparently this madness runs in the family in one way or another.
Yep.
So anyway, but I have to ask you, I know that you went to college for art, but how did you get involved in ceramics? How did you kind of veer off in that direction?
Oh man, so it was actually not like a love at first sight kind of situation. I took a wheel throwing class my second year of undergrad. Maybe it was my first year, and I was not very good at it. I really kind of struggled with it. I wanted to see results fast, and not only does clay not work that way, um, when you're throwing on the wheel, you make a lot of things that don't end up turning into anything to start, just to learn. And I wanted to have my bowls and plates and everything all ready to go. Um, that I wasn't going to really touch clay again. And then the next year in the fall, I had a class at the kind of an introduction to 3D type course. And one of the first assignments was working with clay. I'm like, okay, didn't quite work out so well the last time. I mean, it was fine, but we're gonna power through. We're gonna learn something, and we're gonna try it out. And I was actually making relief tiles for the project, and I fell in love with it in that moment. It was a very meditative process. Um, I got to really play with design work, and basically what we did is we made one tile and then we made a mold of it, and then we'd have to create some sort of like an arrangement with it, utilizing like repeating processes and repetitive patterns, and just kind of playing around with it a little bit there. And I absolutely loved every step of it. It was super meditative. I liked the challenge of putting the tiles in different arrangements, and both from working with the slow process of wet clay to the glazing part of it.
Okay. So, well, I know the things that you've displayed and the things that you've kind of known for mostly, I think, in the art world is more the actual sculpture stuff, like the
Hmm.
boxes and other things that you've done, installation work.
Hmm.
But you and I have had this conversation that you really like to do tiles. And
Hmm.
that's an area that I was going to get around to that anyway, but so I'm glad you brought it. I'm glad you brought it up. I think that tile work, particularly custom tile work, I think is a really interesting niche to be involved in. You know,
Hmm.
not everybody has a room in their house to display or to do an installation, but everybody's got a little spot on the kitchen wall,
Hmm.
or or in the den or someplace like that, where they can do something like that. So I think it's really terrific. So I've seen some of your work, and it's really fascinating. And I'll display some when we do this. But um, uh, so I think how do you get your ideas for doing some of this stuff?
Oh, it comes from a variety of things. So for things like the tile work, because probably because of how it all started, it starts from doodles. I look at a lot of Art Nouveau architectural work,
Uh-huh.
and um, so it kind of like ties in like some of those references there, and um, playing with like little doodles off of the side and trying to bring that back in, and then kind of thinking about like where tiles are in the home and the relation to that, to the arts and crafts movement. There's been a process that's been developing further with that, for the cardboard boxes and like other things that I'm working more in that direction in the future. It's trying to look at things from a new perspective that I would normally disregard. So in the case of the cardboard boxes, I was doing a lot of moving at the time. I was literally surrounded by boxes ready for my next move and thinking about started as thinking about the relationship of the box to the things that they were protecting during the move. And then it started taking a look at like the actual box itself, and seeing that it would do all these beautiful things that I would normally not notice because I look at it for its utilitarian use and not for an object that's meant to be pretty, or to be like put in a place of like up on the pedestal kind of thing. Um, so yeah, I've been starting to look at um, picture frames lately. That is kind of like the start of a new path that I'm
Oh,
working towards, actually, and our relationship to picture frames and what's inside of them, and um, looking at them as themselves, not for what they are used for.
gotcha. Gotcha. So if you were to display one, you display the frame itself without the accompanying
Yep.
image.
Yep.
So that's I've often thought that, I mean, my wife, your aunt, has had her own gallery for a while, and so I would see pictures that were framed by the artists, and I always thought a lot of the frames were beautiful in and of themselves. As a matter of fact, some of the frames I
Mhm.
always thought were actually prettier to look at than the image that they contained. And so, some of the images were kind of boring, you know.
Yeah.
but but the frames were like, well, that's kind of cool, and somebody had to somehow carve that out or make a mold out of that and do that kind of thing. And I thought that's kind of interesting the way that's done.
Yeah, and there's just like such a fascinating history with that too, of like our relation to utilizing picture frames. So like, they were originally designed um to kind of either like to continue out the picture. I'm thinking of like in Versailles and stuff, when you're seeing all these very elaborate picture frames,
Uh-huh.
it's supposed to like accentuate the artwork more. And in more contemporary times, we're using those very simple black frames, sometimes wood, sometimes metal. Like it is meant to be clean and to um, kind of encapsulate the artwork on the wall, but to almost kind of disappear in the same way.
Right. Yeah, I think that's marvelous. So we're looking at uh, the artist aesthetic, which is very different very often than the general public. And again, I come back to your cardboard boxes briefly, if I can. Um,
Hmm.
and I know that a friend of mine saw your winning entry in Grand Rapids a couple of years ago, and I remember I was talking to him about the fact he made mention of the fact that he had been there. And I said, oh, my niece was showing a piece and actually won and blah, 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 blah. And I told him which piece it was. He went, that was her. He said, oh my God. He said, walk past that. He said, I thought that was a real box. I couldn't figure out why they just put a real box on the pedestal. And
Oh,
he says, I
yeah.
reached out and touched it. And he went, holy mackerel. So the realism was really quite stunning. And the artistry, and he was very impressed, and he was very happy to hear that you had won in your category because of that. So
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was. quite the experience.
Well,
I
it's
had
gotta be a
gone
little
down
difficult.
for,
I was gonna say it's gotta be a little difficult to be juried.
oh yeah, because a lot of times, like, I mean, and that's also kind of the point, is like you kind of look past it and you're like, okay, it's a cardboard box, on a pedestal. Like, is someone trying to be Duchamp? Like, are they just trying to put, like, garbage in a gallery kind of thing? Um, but that's the reward if you stop and take a look at it a little bit longer. And then that's the challenge beyond that, is to take a look at things around you in your daily life a little bit longer than you normally would.
So what kind of influences that aesthetic? I mean, where is that coming from? Any idea?
I had looked at several things. Mostly that was just kind of taking a look at the world around me more than anything.
Just representing that. That makes a lot
Hmm.
of sense. I know that uh, in a lot of what we see in art, we see a lot of different things being represented. It's kind of a hyper realism, whether
Hmm.
it's cardboard box or whether it's a scene from the inner city, or I don't know, Jeff Koons and his balloon
Yeah.
things, but that's still, again, it comes back to, it's kind of a hyper real kind of thing, and even in a lot of the photography we see in the photographic art,
Mhm.
it's at times can be very stark. I know the photographer Jane Rosemont, who's actually been on the show, has done some stunning work in black and white photography, and um, again, it's very very realistic, and can be a little startling, I suppose, at first, until you realize
Mhm.
just how beautiful it is. So it's is that the trend as I'm seeing it? It seems to be the trend. Is that what you're seeing?
I'm seeing a bit of that, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So it's art, like everything, has trends. We find ourselves uh, being, I think, what's the word I'm looking for? We get inspired by something that somebody does, and we take that inspiration and do something perhaps like it. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, if enough people do that, you have a trend. And then enough
Yeah.
people go, that's enough of that.
Yep. I want to do something else.
Yeah, yeah. Been done.
Yeah.
So, so you're looking at picture frames. I'm assuming you're still doing some tile work. Um, are, are the sculptures kind of just a way of being noticed and kind of going by the wayside?
No, they're just right now I'm in a transitional phase with studio space.
Okay.
I was really fortunate with my last body of work to be able to have like all the resources that I wanted at my hands. And so now it's trying to get settled in with a bigger space that I can work, easier ways to fire things. And tiles right now are just a easier way to keep going with things and also keep my hands dirty with clay and um, also keep reminding me of what I really love to do.
Now, clay is an ancient medium. It's been around since dirt. But
Mhm.
but but are there new materials, new things that are coming up, new glazes, for example, or new finishes and new processes that are entering into your field?
Oh, for sure, all the time. I know um, that it's been kind of a build-up for 3D printing in clay. And last year I went to the National Ceramics Conference, and that started becoming more of a popular thing. There were like multiple booths that had like 3D clay printing machines, and um, I think that technology is really starting to get up there and it's becoming much more common to use. I wouldn't necessarily say it is completely common to use right now, but I would say that's definitely the next big thing that's happening with clay.
Okay, so I mean, I've seen on a large scale, I've seen them 3D print houses. We've all seen videos of that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. And the image that I have are these long tubular lines that run around, around, around. It couldn't possibly be like that in your field, is it? I mean, concrete is not
Yep,
clay.
it's just a smaller version of it. Think of more of like a tabletop kind of thing or like a
Uh-huh.
CNC machine.
Uh-huh.
That's going to be it will print it in like those little
Yep.
cylindrical paths. You'll
Uh-huh.
program it. It's pretty much the same concept, just
Downsized.
smaller size
Yeah,
and
gotcha. Gotcha. So now you're also doing are you doing some teaching at this time?
not right now.
Okay.
I was teaching, I did it for a semester at GVSU, Grand Valley State University when I was in Grand Rapids.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
So, but not at the moment. Is it something you enjoyed?
Yes, yes, definitely.
So
I really love being able to share what I've learned with other people.
I, I've had that same, made a career out of that, obviously, and one of the things that I've thought about recently is just the need for creativity in the human existence,
Hmm.
and it's not necessarily to be great at it, but I think it's part that we have to put our own stamp on our own personal space.
Hmm.
Are you finding that as well?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that can like you'll see it even in those who say that they can't do art, you know. But like you go into their home and even if it's like a picture frame from Walmart or Hobby Lobby, you got pictures up on the wall, there's like still that design aesthetic that like I mean there's a reason why we put stuff up on our walls and everything. Like we need some sort of visual stimulant, I guess. We need something that we can enjoy besides just plain white box walls and
Well, I've said that that you can walk or drive through certain subdivisions that were built in the 50s and early 60s, and you see the same four or five house patterns over and over and over again through,
Mhm.
several blocks. But, some may have shutters, some may not, some are white, some are tan, some are blue, some have flowers out front or, and so you see people putting their own stamp on what is essentially just um, a factory built house mostly. I mean, there's really not much there as, from a design element, but
Mhm.
each one becomes different, the type of windows that are put in and things like that. So I think that as a musician, as a music teacher, I know that people, uh, and I had to accept that a long time ago, that most of my students, nearly all of my students, have zero desire to perform. It's their desires to spend a little time here and there making some music on their own or with their friends, and just having the ability to
Mhm.
kick back. And I gotta believe that whether it's a painting class or a ceramics class or something like that, that the vast majority of the people that come to that just want to learn kind of how to do it, and back in the old day, make an ashtray.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, put two
A
grooves
ring
in it and it's an
bowl and
ashtray. Started out as a bowl, but now it's an ashtray.
yep.
but but it's not just a bowl or an ashtray, to follow the joke through, but it's the one that I made,
Yeah.
or the one that my daughter made, or the one that my
Hmm.
son made, or something like that, and it becomes important because of that value, that it's not just an object, but it's my object, it's my creativity, you know.
Hmm.
And it's always accompanied with the, well, I know it's not very good, but but at that point it really is, it's, I think there's
Yeah.
that aesthetic. I think and I think we can do that. We see it in photographs now, particularly because everybody's got a camera in their phone, so they're taking
Hmm.
pictures all the time and posting pictures all the time. But I think there's also a real human desire, to uh, a real human desire to do it. And so that's part of when they see what you do, or when they see what I do, uh, they say, I've tried that. That's hard,
Hmm.
and this is how it's supposed to be done, and I think they kind of follow through with that. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Yeah. So I think of like I feel like I've seen more and more like paint and sip nights and paint your own pottery places here and there. Like
Oh,
and more and more people starting to take part in these activities, like these one-off painting classes just to make something, and they don't necessarily care if it's you know, the pristine painting that would be shown in a gallery. It's just to go and make something and have fun and enjoy other people's company while you're doing it. And I definitely am seeing more and more of those kinds of classes lately. And
Yeah, and I know the plein air classes. Now you do a lot of drawing yourself. A lot of the stuff that you've done for your ceramics, of course, started off as drawings, correct?
oh yeah, definitely. Especially with tile work when I'm not able to actually like work in the studio, I'm constantly playing around with different drawings and um I've actually started kind of playing with doing that in the digital scheme. I have a tablet that I will project up onto my desktop monitor and have started playing with designs that way.
Now, do you ever make these available to the general public as artwork?
Not my little sketches. If it's something that I put a little bit more time into, that is just definitely something that I've considered in the past.
I bring that up only because I'm uh, one of my little secret one of my little secret obsessions is I like to watch these shows on TV where they're building cars, doing custom
Mhm.
car work. And I do that in part because I am the least mechanical man you have ever met in your life. It's embarrassing. And so I watch these guys do this stuff the same way other people watch me play guitar. It's like, wow,
Mhm.
how did he do that? How did he think of that? That kind of thing. But some of these guys, they do the sketch or they do a drawing of the car that they want to build before they actually build it. And some of these sketches are fetching some money now too because it's really
Oh
good
yeah.
artwork. These guys are all homegrown and kind of learned on the back porch kind of thing, and yet they're cranking out some beautiful. So if you're into automotive art, and into that
Yeah.
kind of celebrity art, that stuff. So I was wondering if maybe some of that, you use it to create your artwork, but at the same time, it is artwork on its own. It has legs of its own.
Yeah, I would say I have kind of like two different tiers. I have like a small little, I actually have it next to me, a small little book
Oh,
here, just like it's like a little dotted journal, and I'll use it for writing thoughts, like referring to like art stuff. And I'll have tiny little sketches kind of spread throughout. That is kind of like the more private journal of like of where
sure.
the kind of initial ideas start and as I'm trying to work things out. But then eventually once I start taking like the little doodles, so to speak, that are in the journal, onto like bigger paper, those ones I could see actually progressing more that because I'll put more time into it, to be like the preliminary sketches to the actual tiles.
So you are um, planning on getting your own studio set up and raring to go here. I'm assuming
Mhm.
that the sooner the better. I'm guessing.
Yes.
Ju-
Yes.
Just a guess.
Yep. Living in an apartment definitely makes it difficult for firing work.
Yes, it.
But I've been working on finding places that I could set up a little corner in my apartment to make some stuff and then take it to go fire it somewhere else.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So you'll be, I'm assuming, taking on clients at that point.
Yes, once I have like a steady place that like I can be sure that I'm able to crank out work that I'd like, that's definitely when I'd start taking on clients.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So that's coming up in the future, I'm assuming. So what other
Mhm.
future plans do we have?
Oh man. Right now it's besides working on the tiles and the like preliminary drawings, getting that stuff set up, is this uh picture frame
Uh-huh.
thing. Like that's I see that expanding into a body of work, not unlike the cardboard boxes,
Okay.
but it's still like in the baby stages, where it's just kind of doing like a lot of sketching, a lot of journal writing, a lot of experimenting just on paper before I start taking it to clay.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, has the clay that you use, just out of curiosity, has that changed any? Is it the same clay that they've been using for thousands of years, or are they coming up with new materials there?
Oh, there's new clay bodies created all the time. I think Roven Ceramics in Michigan, they just came out recently with a new formulated clay body. And, a lot of that too depends on material resources that are available. There's sometimes like different mines that the materials come out of, like they
Uh-huh.
start running low on materials. So recipes have to be changed and tested. And uh, so there's new recipes coming out all the time. The stuff that I was using for my cardboard boxes was just my own mix of a couple of different recipes put together and tested out and reformulated, and would
Gotcha.
probably wouldn't necessarily use that same recipe now just because of some of the materials that are involved with it are very costly.
Nothing nuclear, I hope. So,
No. No, no.
so do we have any more competitions or juried shows coming up?
Not right now. I don't know if I will feel comfortable enough with this new body of work that I'm starting to work on to try to exhibit in our prize this year. So there might be a pause this year for that. But we'll see.
Well, obviously I wish you the best of luck as both as a fellow artist and as your loving uncle. And and thank you so much for doing the show. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me on today.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I always enjoy talking with successful artists about their careers, but I also enjoy talking with emerging artists, knowing that it's a real privilege to watch as they embark on what we hope will be their successful careers. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you'll come back real soon to Creative Conversations with Roger Humphrey.